Hey everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Into the Rift podcast, a Riftbound TCG podcast hosted by myself, Alexander Coccia, and my good friend, Joe Curley. Joe, we've got a lot to talk about today. It is an action-packed episode with some good stuff, some not so good stuff, but some very important conversations that have to be had. But how are you doing this week, my man? How have you been?
Very good. I was one of the very fortunate people to get a ticket for Bologna. So I'm feeling very, very grateful and excited to start playtesting Spiritforged soon and start getting ready for my first Riftbound competitive event. That's an exciting one. But, of course, many people weren't so fortunate, Alex. Did you get a ticket for Vegas?
So that is the first topic of conversation. So today we are going to be talking about the regional ticket situation. We're going to be talking about what we've been playing, the decks of the week, and of course, some early Spiritforged bangers. But getting us off the ground and running is exactly what Joe is known for, and he's done that here, and we are going to dive into our first topic of conversation, which is the regional ticket situation. To answer your question more directly, yes, I did get a ticket, but not a competitor ticket. So I logged in right away, and the site was basically like barely alive. And then by the time I actually saw the page to like buy a ticket, it was all sold out for the competitor badges, both the premium and the standard. I was like, bro, someone sold out all the $500 premium ones right off the rip. I was like, geez. All that was left was a standard admission. And I thought to myself, you know what? At this point, I assume that everything's sold out and everything's just gone immediately. So I purchased a standard admission, which I'm okay with because for me, I want to be part of the experience. I'm more than happy doing sealeds nonstop all weekend because I actually love the sealed format in Riftbound. You know, do a couple kind of constructed events, whatever. I'm more than happy with engaging in the side events and stuff like that, but no main event for me. I did not get a ticket, and I was a little heartbroken. I'm not going into it expecting to win, don't get me wrong, but I wanted to try, and I wanted to compete because I love the game, and I love the way it plays, and I want to see where I fare against the best in the world, and I'm not going to get that opportunity, much like I'm sure many of you.
Yeah, it's a bummer. And I was also on the site, like ready to go, and I got quite fortunate that I spotted a bit of a trick. I spoke with some friends, and they sort of tipped me off that maybe the URL where the tickets would go live would be somewhat predictable, because it's the same website that was used for Houston. So there was like a page available of like Houston tickets. Obviously those had sold out many months before, but if I kept refreshing that page, and on that website I was like clicking, there was like a ticket button. I was like refreshing that. I was also trying like the website and then removing the Houston part and putting Bologna in instead, or Riftbound Bologna. I tried a few different things. And then as soon as I got in. I got very, very lucky just to snipe one of those tickets very early on. But I do hear that before Riot themselves or UVS tweeted or even released publicly the link anywhere, the event was already sold out, which is not ideal, is it? They took this interesting approach to not announce where the tickets were on sale until they were on sale. And I imagine that was an anti-bot strategy, because I imagine it takes a little, I don't know how these things work, but it might take a bit of a minute to set some bots up to buy a bunch of tickets, I would imagine. So I think it was an anti-bot strategy, but not to release them at all, and then have a URL that's somewhat predictable. It sort of just ends up with a lot of people feeling quite left out, and it's not a great look, is it? I think ultimately, as we're going to be looking at a tweet in a minute, there was always going to be a lot of people who are left out, and I'm not sure there's a perfect answer to any of this, but it's certainly not good, I think, that the tickets are sold out before the link was released, because that just means that for a lot of the casual people, it's going to be absolutely impossible to get your hands on a ticket.
Yeah, so obviously on Twitter, we are going to talk about a tweet that kind of went out, but the general discourse was highly negative and upset. I saw a lot of people that were even local to Las Vegas kind of like just frustrated, like, man, we have so many people local to Las Vegas that would have loved to have been able to play and couldn't get tickets. So many people love the game and so many people want to get in on it. To have the tickets released in such a fashion is absolutely frustrating. And I got to be honest with you, like I was heartbroken when I didn't get the competitor one, but I was still happy with the opportunity to go at all. But it is a big ask. You're talking about me flying across borders from Toronto to, Las Vegas and not even compete in the main event and just do, side missions and stuff. Not side missions, but, side events and stuff like that, right? Which I'm still happy to do because, again, I love the game. But it's a big ask for a lot of people. And I think that like there's been a very consistent through line where obviously Riftbound's teams, both from the event side and from the like development side, they've been very surprised at the fervor that this game has created. Like we joked about in the first episode how it kind of was sent out to a Chinese launch and they're like, maybe NA will care, maybe they won't, who knows. And everyone's like, bring it here. What are you talking about? Like, why didn't you release it here too? And they're like, oh man, people want it. And then they released it. Then there's not enough product. Everyone wants it. And then now with the events, they're selling out like this. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I hope they're taking their notes. And it sounds like they are taking it seriously for what it's worth. This has been a learning experience for them. And while the frustration we're experiencing now is heartbreaking, ultimately, I hope that it serves as a launching point for better events in the future. One easy thing I think they should have done is there is absolutely no reason why they needed to do Bologna and Las Vegas on the same day. They, like, if their servers are dying because of the demand, or even if they had these issues of like, oh, well, like Bologna's URL was guessable, they could have used that like initial one of the two has a like, well, Bologna's first. So let's say you do the Bologna one first and they learned, oh, the URL was guessable. Oh, the site crashed. Oh, 1,500 tickets or whatever wasn't enough. Those are all lessons they could have learned going into the Vegas one like 3 days later or 5 days later or a week later. And so it could have possibly mitigated at least some of this frustration, right? Instead of doing them both at the same time. But you want to get to the tweet, Joe? Should we just get to the tweet here?
Sure. I think on the contrary, Alex, to your point, I think honestly, I think the reason they released both at the same time is to try and avoid people going to both. Because if there's a limit of tickets available, having people attend both events means that there's even less people getting their chance to experience one. I tried to get tickets for both, but I was only able to get tickets for Bologna in time. That was my priority. We've got the tweet up here though, Alex, if we want to read through it for our audio listeners.
Sure. Do you want to give it a quick read?
I can give it a go. So it's Michael Sherman from Riot. He said, to be blunt, today didn't go the way it should have, and we're working with our partners to make it better going forward. Partners here heavily suggesting UVS, which is, of course, the game's main partner for both the competitive side of things, the organised play, and also the printing. I wish we could get in everyone who wants to compete. The reality is, even if everything had gone perfectly, demand would have far outpaced supply by nearly 5 times. That's going to continue to be a challenge for future events. We're building something new for us with these events and trying to grow it responsibly. We've been pushing up event capacity, and we're going to keep doing that as long as we can, still deliver a great competitor and attendee experience. We're working on dialing in everything from round times, judge training, and more to make sure we can accommodate even bigger events. We'll also continue to add non-competitor badges to bring in more of the community. We've got work to do. Lastly, we see the concerns about reselling. We don't have a handle on how big a problem it is, but we do have measures in place to prevent reselling. If someone offers to sell you a tournament badge, please do not buy it. If your name doesn't match the name on the order, you'll be denied entry. We're looking hard at how to crack down on it even further and how we scale up access without compromising the event itself. This isn't solved yet, but the team is all in to get this right.
First of all, I know that a tweet does not correct course for what has already transpired. But I read this, and overall, I came away happy with the response because what's done is done. I hope they just take those lessons learned and apply them to future events. Again, I would love to be competing. I won't be, but I'll be there for the side events. And in the future, I hope to have a better chance of getting a ticket to compete properly. And it sounds like they're taking a lot of effort into improving the experience moving forward. And I think that like the reselling is a big part of it because I saw examples of people trying to immediately resell like the premium competitor badges, like for $1,000. So basically they're just trying to double their money. As soon as everyone realized everything was sold out, they were already up. And I think that frustrated a lot of people. So I want to reiterate this. If you're listening to this right now, they are saying, do not buy resold badges. You will not get in. Do not make that mistake because if you do, you're going to be out a lot of money. So do not buy any resold badges. And it does make sense because if you think about it, like the Nexus nights, you're using, like you're logging in, like you're kind of securing your seats in advance. And when I was at PAX, this is actually an interesting point too. Like there's a lot of learning happening because when I was at PAX Unplugged, people were showing up to PAX Unplugged thinking that you could just walk up to the Riftbound booth line up and get a seat at like a 64-person sealed or whatever. But the reality is the seats were already taken. That they had tables and you had to go online and like secure your seat and pay in advance. And so like I think there's a lot of learning happening with the way that organized play is being handled right now. But with that, if you're paying upfront and you're logging into an account and you're securing your seat, there should be so many ways to prevent reselling from happening. They have so many methods to attack this problem. And I think that they are going to do it because this is clearly something the community does not want to see. It is such an aggravating factor for people who want to get in and then they see ticket resellers. And I'll be honest with you guys. I know I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but this reselling stuff actually pisses me right off. And it's the reason why, like, it's hard to get me amped up. Trust me, I'm usually like, Mr. Positive, I love all things. No, this pisses me off because I won't go to concerts anymore. The whole Ticketmaster, all that reselling stuff, it is absolutely brutal. It's out of control to the point where like I don't even look at like who's doing concerts. I don't even look at that entire industry because of what reselling is. And I don't want to see it in the things I truly love, like Riftbound and TCGs. I just don't want to see it here. And I think that they don't want to see it either because this message absolutely tells me that they're going to ensure that people aren't being scammed with these resellers.
Yeah, it's also like, so when I bought my ticket, it did give me the option of buying multiple tickets. I don't know if there was like a limit on it, but in theory, what you might have been, or what I'm sure some people tried to do, is they get through in a state of panic, like, oh my goodness, I can buy more than one ticket, right? Let me just buy 4 tickets. And then suddenly you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll see if I can sell them. And frankly, if you're going to be able to double your money, right? Even though I agree that reselling is not like a great practice, of course people are going to do it if it's going to make them double their money. We're living in a tough world, right, where money's hard to come by right now. There's a lot of people living in a struggle. So if people are given the incentive to resell, they will. So yeah, Riot stepping in and making it very clear that that's not going to be an option is important. And I think it is actually important to be able to buy multiple tickets at once, because let's say you've got a family of 4 for Riftbound, you've got 2 younger teenagers, you want to go on a family trip. It's important, isn't it, that those kinds of people are going to be part of our game, and we want them to be able to go to events like this. So I think it's important to be able to buy multiple tickets at once, as long as you can't resell them. And I do think, Alex, like the key part from this to note is that supply was nearly 5 times, demand was nearly 5 times more than supply. Now, we think that the events were around 1,500 competitors,
yeah, that's
roughly,
what I heard too,
that kind of ballpark. Maybe slightly under. So that means there was 3,000 competitor tickets available for these 2 events. So there was like 15,000 people trying to buy tickets roughly for these events based off this tweet, which shows you how in demand this game is. Of course, a lot of people will say, well, how many of those were bots? I don't know the answer to that, but I actually think that the bot problem here is being a little bit overestimated by the community. I'm sure there were some bots involved, don't get me wrong. The link, again, didn't go live until the last minute. I'm not sure how that impacts things. But I think there's just a huge demand. And it makes sense when you see how much the best of prizes are going for, right? Like 40, 50K, and 16 of those were given out, roughly. It's not a surprise that people are doing everything they can to get in to play these events. Of course, they're extremely popular. And I think ultimately, there's always going to be people left out. Like, it's not going to be very easy for a trading card game company to have a venue with 5,000 people available. It's almost impossible. Almost every event I've been to has a limit of 2,000 with some extreme exceptions. So this is probably going to be a problem for the foreseeable future. And it's going to be interesting to see how Riot can do it. Like, do you have a lottery system in place? Do you just keep having it be this sort of like free-for-all where like the quickest people to get a ticket get one? I'm not sure there's ever a perfect answer to this. And I think that they were always going to probably receive some flack off this first one, but it's going to be important to see how do they improve it as quickly and as best as possible.
I think that's the key takeaway. There is going to be a lot of flack given on how this was handled. However, I actually do view this in a positive light as long as they learn the lessons here. If in future events, right, you said, for instance, buying multiple tickets, I think that's fine too, because there's a chance, like, let's say I'm buying one for myself, my brother, a friend, or whatever. We're all going down to Vegas together. That would be cool. In this case, I'm going by myself, but it'd be cool though if you could actually list their names. Like, you have to register their names so that the names have to match the badges and all that type of stuff. That would make sense and would prevent the reselling, right? Because otherwise, the reseller would have to know your name in advance to resell, and that's not the way it's going to work because they'll sell out. I just hope And I'm actually thinking that they will be committed to improving the process moving forward. And I think that that's ultimately all you can ask for. We are very fortunate to be playing a game that has this problem. So much interest in it that we're selling out events so rapidly. There are a million TCGs out there that would love to have this problem, that would pay a fortune to have this problem. And Riftbound, because not only is it attached to a fantastic IP, but it's a fantastically well-designed game. But not just that. I think part of the interest as well, Joe, comes from the fact that Houston was so good. Like, the stream was awesome, the production was awesome, the event was awesome, and the rewards were awesome too. Like, everything about Houston fed into the desire to compete in Vegas, in Bologna. Like, it's just, we are in a good position, provided that UVS and the Riftbound team iron out these kinks. And I actually think they will, because we care, you care, everyone listening cares about Riftbound. But nobody wants these events to run smoother than the people that are organizing them. I can assure you that. We're heartbroken. They're heartbroken as well, because they don't want to see these things happen, and they want these events to be as hype as possible, because they love the game and they love this community that is forging around this game. So I have hope, Joe.
Yeah, I do too. I have a feeling, Alex, what we might see, because before all of this happened, before Riftbound was even out, there was like these big news articles they did about how their organized play structure is going to work, and how even these local game store events, these skirmishes, are going to feed into the next event and then onwards and onwards. At the moment, if you win a skirmish, you get a buy for one of these regionals. But a lot of players that have won these skirmishes weren't able to get a ticket at all and make use of that buy. So it would be very, very fascinating if moving forwards, one way of sort of giving people more to play for at their local game store would be suddenly, maybe if you win a skirmish, instead of getting that buy, let's say you got to the final of a skirmish. Imagine the players at a final of a skirmish have the right to reserve a ticket for one of these events. Or maybe you just win the skirmish, whatever it might be. That would be actually, I think, even better than a buy in many ways, because you would just guarantee yourself a place at what I think is going to continue to be an extremely difficult event to get a ticket for. And that's going to also support game stores, isn't it? Because you're going to get more people going to these skirmishes, etc. And Riot seem to be very, very keen to have that brilliant system where the local game store play builds all the way up and feeds into the bigger events. And I think that's definitely something to keep an eye on. That would be how I predict they might handle it moving forwards.
Yeah, they've done a great job kind of nurturing the LGS scene, for sure. I mean, there are still some frustrations around like pricing and stuff like that. Like I went to a whole bunch of skirmishes, stuff like that, all around my city, other cities, and I even saw people traveling. We're like traveling in opposite directions from city to compete. And, actually one of the LGSs I was at recently in another city outside of mine, I said, hey, like, do you have product? They're like, yeah, we do. For $400. A box was $400. And I'm thinking to myself, listen, man, like, I want to support a local LGS, but getting pre-scalped, it's like we need to get more boxes out here, man. We need to get more product out here fast. I'm just trying to buy some Origins, not even because I'm a Teemo stan. I'm just playing Teemo. I got my Teemo stuff. I just want to crack some packs, man. I just want to go after my first signature card and stuff like that, and I can't do it. I can't. 400 plus tax, I will add. So add another 13% on top of that. I can't do it, right? And that's actually another problem that needs to be kind of addressed, because there's people, especially because like I come from other games, relatively large audience, and people are telling me like, hey, Alex, I saw that new Riftbound podcast. Looks cool. I love Spessy. Good to see him, you guys kind of doing some collaborations. But I can't get into Riftbound. It's too expensive. And the amount of times I've heard that over the last couple of weeks is so heartbreaking. So they got to fix the supply, and I think they're going to try. And of course, with these events, I'm really hoping they fix them. And I really do think that they are committed to it. But at this point, I think it's okay that we move on to the next point of conversation. But this was an important one. And if you're listening, which, I mean, you would have to be if you're kind of engaging with us right now, I would just plead patience. I know it can be frustrating. I was frustrated as well, but I do believe that they have their hearts in the right place and that they're going to put as much effort as possible to learn the lessons from these past events and make the future ones even better for what has happened over the last week. So at least there's that to look forward to. Let's talk about what we've been playing, Joe, because we have been playing a couple different things here. And would it surprise you to know that I've been playing Teemo, but I gave up on the Seals Teemo. You know, I played at all my skirmishes, and the Seals Teemo was not too bad. It was pretty good. A couple cards in it really made me happy. Like I really liked the Sprite Mother, stuff like that. Really came to show just how good that was, and just small things like, I don't know. I love Teemo. But finally, I had to crack. I was like, you know what? For this next pod, I'm not just going to put up the same deck on the screen, right? Top 36, Alex Garcia. He was the best of Teemo in Houston. And I've been staring at this deck. I'm like, I got to give it a shot. He got 36. I'm sure as heck not going to get 36 if I go to Vegas. Well, no, we already talked about I'm not competing, but, I'm not going to hit 36. He must know something I don't know. So I built the deck. I played it. What can I say? It's actually a beauty. And a couple things in here that really stood out to me. First of all, there is very clearly a set, like there's some cards you just can't not have, right? There are some cards, and like playing Teemo, playing blue, playing purple, you start to realize that like the Ravenbloom Student might be one of the strongest 2-drops in the game when you're running cards like Stupefy, Gusts, and Flashes, and all these other things doing you're kind of casting so frequently. It amps up in a way that I really do appreciate. I really like the inclusion here of the smoke screens, because with smoke screen, it's one of those cards I feel like you get cut from a lot of other ones, but you can tech it in and you can sideboard it in whenever you kind of need to. I'm very fortunate this is also just running 2 of the Thousand Tail Watchers, 3 Mundos, because I only have 2 of the Thousand Tail Watchers. But I have to tell you, this deck's good. It's really good. It's really fun. And once you remove the seals, you're able to add things back in, like the 3 Gusts, which really do help with a lot of the more aggressive matchups. Joe, what are your thoughts on this deck from Alex Garcia, top 36 in Houston?
It looks really clean. I'm often sadly criticizing a lot of the decks I see because I'm quite opinionated, but this looks very, very clean. I like it a lot. The Sprite Call is a card I'm a huge fan of in this deck recently, where you can play a ready 3 Might Sprite token with Temporary. This has like some really nice synergy because Temporary means that it's going to be killed at the start of your next turn before you score a point. But the way that it actually works with hidden cards, let's say you have a Sprite Call, you move the Sprite into a battlefield, you win that battlefield, and then you hide a card there. At the start of your next turn, you can actually react with your hidden card. Let's say you hide the Teemo, the Sprite is then removed from play, but the Teemo will stay at the battlefield and you would score that point for holding. I really like Sprite Call. It sort of replaces the Sneaky Deckhand in a lot of ways and does something similar to what Sneaky Deckhand does in Annie, which is it allows you to score some low commitment points in the sort of middle of the game. The one thing, Alex, I don't like is I'm very, very surprised that there's not 3 copies of the Watcher. And I also feel like 3 Mundos is a lot for a deck which isn't playing the Traveling Merchant. So maybe one thing I would switch around is I would probably play 3 Watchers. I would have 2 Mundos and a third on the sideboard. That's my gut feeling. The rest I really like a lot.
It is interesting. So over the last month where I've been playing exclusively Teemo, I've really become a believer in the Traveling Merchant. Not only does it obviously make your Mundos larger, but it allows you to seek the answers through the decks that you need, right? If you are late game and you top deck, a Lecturing Yordle and you're like, this is not helpful. I mean, you could play it for the draw, I guess. Like that actually is not the best example. But if you're like, I need that smoke screen, right? Or I need that Ride the Wind. You could move that Traveling Merchant and just kind of mill through your deck. Try to find the answer that you need. You got the big Mundo. I need Ride the Wind. I'm going to move the Merchant. I'm going to start to top deck. I want to find it, right? And I felt that utility was very helpful because it let me find the answers while also keeping those Mundos large. But I also did find that sometimes Mundos were just like stupid big. Like I didn't need a 26 power Mundo, right? Maybe a 12 power Mundo's enough. You know what I mean? And so as a result, it is an interesting design. Especially considering that, I was cutting the Tide Turners as well, who obviously are fantastic cards with Mundo because you can kind of reposition things very rapidly. Also a hidden card, which can create some interesting shenanigans. Now, the retreats I found to be absolutely amazing as well, especially because now, unfortunately, the way that I have my system set up, I can't actually read the text on anything because it's way too small. I can't remember the name of the battlefield that when you cast a spell on your own unit, you get the +1 draw.
Dreaming Tree.
So thank you so much. Retreating on Dreaming Tree feels like unbelievable because you're targeting your own ability, right? You're targeting your own unit, you're getting that draw, and then you're getting the effect of the retreat. So for me, I found this is actually a bit of a superpower, because like usually you're running like the Bandle Tree and like all like you're usually like the Zon Warrens, like the usual stuff, and the battlefields here are completely different, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, the battlefields are really interesting. So all three of them are actually somewhat controversial in an interesting way, like they're up for debate. And these battlefield decisions are only going to get more complicated as we get more cards being added into the pool. I think also it's like, to go on a slight tangent, it's proof that the deck building in Riftbound is so brilliant that even in our very first set, where the card pool available to us is the smallest it's ever going to be by a mile, we're still iterating over things so much. Like, these cards have all been released for like 5 months at this point, and yet people are still not settled on list. And this is the very first set. Like, the deck building in this game is brilliant. The 3 battlefields, you've got Grove of the God Willow. That's going to be the designated battlefield when you go first, which is when you hold here, draw 1. I personally am a big fan of the Arena's Greatest in a Teemo deck as my sort of designated go first battlefield. Then the Windswept Hillock, which is units here have ganking. This is also the one that I've been trying recently, which has synergy with Dr. Mundo in particular, Ember Monk as well. Again, Teemo wants to score a few cheap points in the middle game, and it can struggle to do that at times. So having ganking on an Ember Monk is a great way of doing that. And then the Dreaming Tree is like the sort of like go second battlefield. Obviously works exceptionally well also. But it's very interesting how, not playing Zorn Warrens, which seems like such a good card with Dr. Mundo in particular. Every card you discard is an extra might on Dr. Mundo. So it's some very interesting decisions with the deck building in the battlefields. Because, of course, usually we see Bandle Tree, which is you can hide 2 cards here. And I think both of us, Alex, as big Teemo fans, have sort of been moving away from that card a little bit as time goes on.
Yeah, I have been. The Bandle Tree, I feel like, is a trap. It's like it ultimately ends up being just a neutral battlefield, because I don't feel like I'm ever hiding that much there, because I'm either against like someone like an Annie who's being hyper aggressive and I'm utilizing my hidden cards very frequently, or someone's going towards Dazzling Aurora, and why am I hiding more stuff when I need to be like just closing out the game? Like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, you could close out more stuff, prevent their movement, stuff like that. Like there are reasons, but it often feels more neutral than anything else. Now with Arena's Greatest, one of the challenges that I felt there, and one of the reasons why I still play it, because I am like in my personal LGSs that I'm going to, I am seeing a lot of like Aurora Yees, stuff like that. I even played against a Misfortune Dazzling Aurora deck as well, which is not surprising considering what happened the prior week that we discussed, right? So I feel like the Arena's Greatest still needs to be in your pocket, because that really accelerates that game, right? Like it allows you to close out those games much faster. But when you're playing Arena's Greatest and they're playing Annie, and they're also playing Arena's Greatest, it's like, oh no, like I don't know if I'm in the right position here, because I feel like it's funny, because like some people are on the fence about the matchup between Annie and Teemo. I think that if you get ahead early, I feel like Teemo has answers to really disrupt, especially if you have cards that'll like the Rebukes that'll like take that Vi and send it off and blow up their discard pile, right? That it sends them back. Then they get the Dravens. They get, there's all different ways that they have these catch-up mechanics, right? But ultimately, I'm not convinced it's that bad of a matchup, despite the fact that it is a very aggro-centric game.
Yeah.
But I do feel like we're pretty favored against, like, especially with Arena's Greatest, against the Dazzling Aurora decks, because we get on the field of play, we position ourselves very rapidly. Even if they get those big chunks, we're able to kind of send them back with the fight or flights, things like that. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on the kind of the matchups for Teemo. But generally speaking, I found it to be relatively even against some of the more aggro-centric Annie decks.
Yeah, Kaiser was the deck that was giving this deck a big problem initially, but then Dr. Mundo was sort of the card added into the mix, which improves that matchup. And it's still quite a tight matchup, though. That's what I like about Teemo, though. There's a lot of opportunity to outplay your opponent. There's a lot of agency. I think Sprite Call is certainly going to help a lot against Annie as well, like just a way of removing their sneaky deck hands potentially, and contesting those, I think, is really important. So Teemo also, for Spiritforged, has a lot more hidden cards being added into the pool, which I think makes Teemo really interesting in the next set. And actually maybe the Bandle Tree battlefield might become a bit better next format, because if you actually look at the amount of hidden cards in this deck, you've got Tide Turner, Sprite Call, Consult the Past, I think, and you obviously got the Teemo champion as well, Fight or Flight. While that's quite a few hidden cards, like Fight or Flight and Tide Turner and Sprite Call, often you're actually going to play them more often than you hide them. It's really only consult the past as like a designated hidden card. I think next format, like if Teemo can get some more hidden cards in the mix, which I think there's some really strong ones, it's definitely a deck to keep an eye on. The other thing, Alex, that's really interesting about this deck is only 6 2 energy units, which for what is somewhat of a tempo deck, like it does need to win quite quickly, is not a lot. But that's what I love about this Teemo champion, is it is a 2 energy unit. You don't want to play it as your first turn, but you can if you don't find anything else. And actually by cutting those traveling merchants, you get to add quite a lot of extra things into the mix. Like you get to play your gusts, your retreats, the sprite cores. So I really like the way this one's built. I think maybe just Arena's Greatest and Zorn Warrens would be my choice of battlefields instead of the Grove and the Dreaming Tree. And probably I would just play that third Watcher instead of third Mundo. But I would have that third Mundo on the sideboard ready to bring in against Kaiser.
Well, thankfully, the third Watcher has come down in price. I think it's like $39 or so. But you were talking about Spiritforged.
You know what, Alex? The US, like the North American prices compared to Europe, I am a very lucky boy. Watcher's like, I think it's like $12 equivalent at the moment in Europe. It's so much cheaper at the moment than it is in America.
Why are you trying to just tilt everyone out? Why are you trying to just bait negative engagement? You're upsetting me. I can only imagine how everyone listening's feeling, Joe. Come on, man. It's been a heavy day already today. It's been a rough week for us, all right? We don't need that. But you were talking about Spiritforged, and I'm going to just throw this out there for a sec. There's this guy I wanted to talk about. I'm going to try and cook him. Nocturne with Teemo Strategist. I'm just throwing it out there. Getting more hidden cards. Maybe that's something we got to talk about, right? Because clearly this is not the way to play Teemo right now. But, I know you love Nocturne. So if we can figure it out, my man, let's do it. Because that's a conversation for another day. But in the meantime...
I need to start cooking for Bologna because I'm going to be playing there. I definitely want to go there and try and get a best of card. So Teemo Jinx are going to be 2 that I'm going to immediately gravitate towards. But of course, also the new decks are quite tempting. Just to correct myself, $25 on Thousand Tailed Watcher in Europe.
Okay, I'm
so
less
not
upset
quite
now.
As cheap as I suggested.
I'm less upset now. I will say, though, that like Jinx, I wonder if Jinx is just being outclassed by Annie in aggro.
Yes.
Like, that's just simply what's happening, right? So, and Spiritforged is going to provide a lot of tools that can perhaps shake up the meta, which we are starting to see in China, of course. Not here in North America, but we will talk about that a little later. But we need to talk about another deck, my man, because you came with an absolute beauty. You're like, Alex, I got to talk to you about this deck here. Talking about the decks of the week. This Viktor deck, my man, I thought I was a little inebriated. And I was looking at this, I'm like, are there no units in here? And then you said,
there's
sir.
one.
There's one. There's one unit.
The chosen champion.
Chosen champion. So, Joe, I'll give you the opportunity to break this down. This is a fascinating deck that came from China. Joe, break it down for us.
Yeah, so there's been some rumors that this deck, and I can't confirm it, is true, at least as far as my knowledge. It won a China City Challenge. So the China City Challenges are like kind of comparable to a regional. They're like somewhere between a skirmish and a regional. I think they sort of sit on that level. Usually these are around like 1 to 200 players. I don't have the data on it, but this is the Guangzhou City Challenge winner. So it was a Spiritforged format. And this is a Viktor deck which plays 1 unit, which is the chosen Viktor champion, which is actually the blue Viktor Innovator, which is a card I like a lot. It's a 4 energy, 1 power, 3 might card, which whenever you play a card during your opponent's turn, you play a 1 might unit token to your base. And of course, Viktor Legend allows you to exert it and spend 1 energy to play a 1 might recruit token. Well, I hope you like recruit tokens, Alex, because if you're playing this deck, that's all you're going to have. It's just filled with spells, spells, spells. No gear, no other units, just spells. And China, of course, plays best of 1 format as well. It's possible that the battlefields were slightly different. We don't have the exact list, and we don't have the sideboard, because again, best of 1. But this is the general gist of the deck, and it is quite something. There's a few new interesting cards in here. Blood Money is one card which is seeming very strong in these Viktor decks. It's a 2 energy spell card, which you can kill a unit at a battlefield with 2 might or less. And if it was an enemy unit, you play a gold gear token exhausted. If it was a friendly unit, you play 2 gold gear tokens exhausted. So of course, ideally, you're going to use this to kill one of your opponent's units, but really nice synergy with Stupefy, right? Like if you play a Stupefy, then suddenly with blood money, you can kill a 3 might unit of your opponent's, and you would get a gold gear token as well. That gold gear token is going to be something everyone's familiar with soon enough, because there's lots of ways of spawning those in Spiritforged. But it's like a seal that can be used for any color, power cost, but once you use it, it's going to kill itself. So it's like a one-time use power cost for free. And then you've just got like lots of top-end cards like Vengeance, Falling Comet, so like kill a unit, deal 6 to a unit, Singularity, deal 6 to 2, Cull the Weak, each player kills one of their units, Blast of Power, kill a unit out of battlefield. It's kind of like a deck which you would think Lux would want to play, but of course if you were to play this as Lux, you wouldn't actually end up with any units, whereas what this deck is looking to do is just looking to control the board totally with all these extremely greedy spell cards, and then win the battlefields with recruits. All you need is 1 might at a battlefield to score it or hold it, and that is the philosophy of this deck, and it's really taking it to the next level.
That's exactly what I was going to say. All you need is 1 might and 1 unit to score a point, and that's exactly what this is looking to do. And I got to tell you, the blue chosen champion for Viktor is one that has largely not been used. Yep. And here, seeing it used to such fantastic effectiveness is great. And honestly, this is a deck that like really interests me, because I think that I think Cull the Weak is a really powerful ability.
Yeah.
Right. And if you think about like the aggression that you're getting from something like an Annie, sometimes their Vi is the only thing on the field to play. You got all your tokens. What are they going to do? See you later, Vi. Like it's done. Right. Yeah. Get rid of the Dravens. Like there's very high impact units that just die to Cull the Weak. Hidden Blade is a very functional ability that obviously can be hidden as well, like a lot of utility there. Like there's just so many ways that you can kind of provide yourself with an opportunity to win, keeping your opponent at bay, not allowing them to do the things that they want to do. Meanwhile, every single time you cast their turn, you're generating value for yourself, right? And setting up what that next turn looks like, right? So I actually love the design of this deck. Singularity I talked about last week. I think Singularity is an absolutely beautiful spell. Like that 6 damage is so specifically harmful to so many meta cards right now. It takes out almost all of the cards that you need to worry about as you get into that mid-tempo like game where it's like, okay, they're coming at me with I've said Draven a million times, Kaisa Survivor, whatever happens to be. Like it just takes those cards out. Even Master Yi. Right? Sorry, not Master Yi. I took out a Yasuo Remorseful, right? It's just, what are you going to do? Boom, dead. See you later, right? So I do love Singularity as an opportunity to trade. It's an expensive spell, especially when you're paying 6 with 2 power. It's a lot to pay. That's why I was playing it with Seals. But this deck here is perfect. And I'm glad that people are starting to experiment a bit, because this is one thing I want to say. This is something that I've been saying for all the games I've always been playing. It's and we love talking decks. It's by far the thing we do the most on this pod. We love it. It's just great. But at the same time, don't be afraid to cook, man. Like, don't be afraid to try some stuff out. Like, I had someone comment like, hey, Seals and Teemo sucks. I'm like, well, maybe it does. But I had to find out my own way, man. I had to find it out. I had to figure it out. I had to cook, because maybe we were sleeping on them. Just like someone obviously was sleeping on, the blue Viktor. So don't be afraid to cook. Get out there. Experiment, and you just might surprise yourself. And maybe it'll be your deck we talk about in a future week. Was there anything else you want to talk about with this specific list?
This deck's so cheap, Alex. It's actually so cheap. I think the only epic card in here is the Viktor Innovator, which is the chosen champion. Everything else is not going to cost you much at all. Of course, there's a few new Spiritforged cards in there. But we did cover in our very first episode, we covered some budget decks, and Viktor was one of them. And we took Willow's list, which was sort of a similar concept. He was playing some units, but he had like this similar sort of idea. So I think actually, if anything, Alex, what it's made me want to do is I'm sort of getting to the point where I'm ready to leave Origins behind and start play testing for Spiritforged, because I'm in Bologna. But if maybe I need to have one last run at Origins and try this deck in an Origins format, of course I'd have to make some changes. But I love the idea of just playing a deck with no units at all. Just every time you draw a card, you know it's a spell.
Yeah, that would be really fascinating. That's actually going to take us to our next topic of conversation, which is some of the absolute banger cards from Spiritforged. And I got to be honest with you guys, Joe and I, we're not quite sure how to tackle Spiritforged. Like, it's so weird that we have these like asynchronous launches because we haven't even had the opportunity to even like give our impressions on the Spiritforged cards yet. And so we're trying to, like, the starter decks actually had some, first of all, they're kind of cool and they saw significant improvement. So like there's things we want to cover, but at the same time, it's like for our primarily English speaking, I'm assuming you can't speak Chinese. I cannot.
Sadly not, mate. No.
Maybe we should
I could
learn,
try.
Honestly. We could try, yeah. No, you won't want to watch us trying to speak Chinese. But the key thing is that we have the Spiritforged launch coming in February. And so we are making a plan to like do, you know, kind of like analysis of like all the new cards being provided in all the different colors and everything. We're just probably going to do it closer to that specific launch and maybe during that time frame start poking away at some of the interesting things we're seeing because we do have this asynchronous launch. Now, I will say, though, that the team at Riftbound did suggest that they're trying to close that gap with every single set, which is great. And hopefully at some point we are going to have we're going to have synchronized launches, which I think is going to be better for the meta and sure of a heck of a lot easier for us because we're kind of stuck in this like weird spot where like, do we talk about the Spiritforged stuff? Because people can't even get them in North America. But like, I mean, you can technically, if you have the Chinese cards, you can play them at locals, right?
Yeah, I guess you could, but there's probably not going to be, you wouldn't be able to play them at Origins tournaments, right? So you could play them in locals, but yeah, probably not for any Nexus Night packs or anything like that. I think if people let us know in the comments what they want to see, like, do they want us to still be covering Origins? Do they want us to be covering only Spiritforged, or is it something which I think we're sort of aiming for at the moment, which is a little bit in between, right? Cover the biggest events and decks of the current meta, but sprinkle in some Spiritforged stuff. So we're definitely down to adapt to what our audience want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Like your input would be valuable because Joe and I are trying to figure it out and there's no cleanly right answer, right? There's a lot of gray and we're just trying to do our best here. With that being said, though, every single weekend in January, there's like major regionals in China. Like there's like literally all the cardinal directions, like west, south,
I'm going to watch
east.
them, Alex. You know, I've already booked off like in my calendar. I'm going to do some watch parties on my channel of those regional events. I need to start practicing for Bologna, right? And what better way to practice than watch the Chinese tournaments? So, and the production, by the way, in the Chinese events is also crazy. They've got some crazy stuff going on there. So I'm looking forward to those a lot. It's every weekend in January, I think. Exactly.
Yeah, right? Literally every single weekend. So anyways, some of the cards have really stood out as being true bangers. And Joe, let's talk Spiritforged here. These are the cards you said are causing a lot of problems in the meta right now. They are the ones that are having the greatest amount of discussion around them. So why don't you lead the way and talk about some of these new bangers that are kind of taking the Spiritforged meta by storm in China?
Yeah, so this is a card, Draven Audacious, which I saw some calls from people to ban it already, which, let's be honest, that's ridiculous. There's always some people with some hot takes about cards that need to be banned before they've played them. But Draven Audacious is an audacious card. It's an accurate title. It's very, very strong, very interesting. 6 energy, 1 power, so it is rather expensive, and 6 might. Of course, there is a new Draven Legend as well, so this could be your chosen champion. Most likely, though, you're going to pick the red Draven as your chosen champion because it costs 4 and has no power cost. So this is going to be a card which would be in your deck, but not necessarily just in a Draven deck, right? You could just play this in any purple deck. It has Deflect, which is obviously a nice upside, but this is where we get onto the good stuff, Alex. The first time I win a combat, each turn you score 1 point, which is unbelievably good. However, it does also come with a significant downside, which is why I love this card so much. When I die in combat, choose an opponent, they score 1 point. So in other words, Draven is extremely risky because if you play Draven and win a combat, you gain a point. But if he dies while you're in combat, your opponent gains a point. But purple has a lot of synergy cards with Draven that can make it extremely good. So first and foremost, like, what is a combat? A combat in Riftbound is essentially a showdown as long as there's a unit defending the battlefield when the showdown starts. So if you're on your first turn, you move into an empty battlefield, that is not a combat, it's a non-combat showdown. However, if I was to move in with Draven Audacious, Alex, into your battlefield, which you're holding with a sneaky deckhand, I then use Fight or Flight on your sneaky deckhand, so my Draven wins the showdown. Even though there's no damage, it is still counted as a combat showdown because, yeah, if there was a combat, I just moved your sneaky deckhand away. So Draven Audacious can win really, really cheap points with a lot of the purple movement mechanics. Things like fight or flight, for example, is a big option. Maybe even like ride the wind. You can only score 1 point with this each turn, but just that flexibility with like flash as well, to if your opponent is about to remove it while it's in a combat, you can just retreat it and suddenly it's going to stay alive and you don't give your opponent a point. There's all kinds of cheeky things you can do with this card, and there's a very real chance it could score you multiple points. But what I love about this card is if it is truly good enough to be banned, like some people are suggesting it are, well, the meta's going to adapt to it, aren't they? And suddenly cards like Vengeance, which can kill a unit at a battlefield, and these other kinds of cards are going to become immensely more popular, like Falling Comet, which can deal 6 to a unit at a battlefield. So while it's exceptionally good, it's also exceptionally bad if it gets countered, and I think that is going to be an extremely fascinating card to see in action.
So it's funny you mentioned that because, like, obviously we talked about Singularity, the opportunity to do that 6 damage, and this is a 6-might card, right? That 6 seems like a threshold that often, can't be surpassed until you hit a whole other scale of cards that you're often seeing in the Dazzling Aurora style decks. What really took me about this deck was, like, now you're starting to see the benefits of Flash, because Flash, being a reaction-based speed, will allow you to defend Draven in ways that, like, other skills just wouldn't allow you to. So I think that's one thing. You also have access to retreats if you're playing on the, again, I'm thinking on the Teemo side, which is likely not going to be here, but like you could potentially do kind of like a blue retreat style thing. So I do think that this card does have a significant downside, but the upside's insane. And you're right to identify that something as simple as a fight or flight will result in a victorious combat, right? So I do think this particular card is really good. Does it need to get banned before it's even seeing release in North America? I don't necessarily think we need to cross that road yet. You know what I mean? But it definitely is a solid one. Now, there were other cards you wanted to discuss as well. One of which, and I said, well, it's Downwell. You wanted to discuss Downwell here. This card here is an 8-costed card for 2 power as well. It's a spell and it reads, return all units and gear to their owner's hands. It's the big reset. Joe, what do you think of it?
The big purple button. Just press in case of emergency. It's just a very different card we've got in Riftbound, isn't it? Like, we haven't had this kind of card in the game before, and it's going to be very, very fascinating to see if any decks can take advantage of this. Of course, a big downside this has is against something like a Sneaky Deckhand or Accelerate cards, which are very, very popular. Your opponent might be able to just like take points back very shortly afterwards, but I'm going to be very fascinated to see if players can make this card work. It is expensive, 8 energy, 2 power cost, but being able to reset the entire board could be extremely good. I'm just thinking in like a Misfortune Dazzling Aurora deck, it might be the best use case, because you can get your Dazzling Aurora down, and okay, you're going to end up returning some of your big guys to your hand potentially, but then your Dazzling Aurora could tick straight afterwards on this, and you could start getting control of the battlefield. So it's a very, very fascinating card, and I'm interested to see how it's going to add to the game. Probably too slow for the current format, maybe. Like, Annie is everywhere. Sprite calls are everywhere at the moment. So, it's interesting.
Yeah, for me, like I see this as slow. And so I'm curious as to, like, one of the reasons why you felt to, like, let's talk about it, let's highlight it. Like, did it come up in one of the Chinese tournaments where, like, this particular?
Yeah, I have seen it. I did see it, but the main reason, to be honest, is it's just such a different card. We haven't really got any true control decks in Riftbound right now. The format's very tempo orientated, but with a card like this in existence, like, this is a card that you could build your entire deck around, and it could open up a totally different style of deck down the line.
There's no question about it, right? Yeah. The big reset button. And that's not the only card you want to talk about here. We also have Jace. And Jace, Man of Progress, a 4-costed 4-might card that reads, when you play me, you may kill a friendly gear. If you do, you may play a gear with energy cost no more than 7 from hand this turn. Ignoring its energy cost, you must still pay its power cost. Joe, what were your thoughts about on this one?
Yeah, so there's a very big wombo combo you can do with Jace. It does require quite a few moving parts, but in yellow, there is a 7-cost gear. So if you're playing a Viktor deck, you can play Jace and this 7-cost gear. And what the 7-cost gear does is you can exhaust it and spawn 3 1-might recruit tokens. So there's like a little combo that you can do either with seals or like some gold gear, where you play Jace on turn 4, you destroy one of your gear. Most likely it's going to be a gold gear token that you can get through a Plundering Porrow, which is another new card. Maybe it's going to be a seal. Destroy that card, get down a 7 might gear on your second turn, which spawns 3 recruits every turn. And that's just going to be really, really spicy. So it's a card that people need to look out for. Obviously, this is a champion unit as well. So I'm particularly excited to see what a Jace legend might look like. I'm a big Arcane fanboy, Alex. When I watched Arcane Season 1, I started playing Runeterra for the first time. And that's sort of been my pathway into Riftbound is through Arcane. So I'm extremely excited to see Arcane characters in the mix. And I think that Jace Man of Progress with this combo is definitely a deck and a combo which people are going to be doing all over the place. And it's one to be aware of.
I literally was talking about this on stream the other day where I said, like, I have not yet seen Arcane, and I couldn't be more excited to. And everyone's like, I'm so jealous you've not seen it yet. Yeah, everyone was saying that.
Again for the third time.
Yeah, so now that, like, the holiday breaks here, which is, I mean, I'm more busy now than I am when I'm at work because with all the kids running around, I got 4 little ones running around. So it's a busy time around the house, but, you know, I did tell my wife, I'm like, hey, if we get a chance to watch anything, I really want to watch Arcane. After, of course, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. We'll make sure we get some Arcane in there. Now, you did mention the Plundering Porrow. I'm glad you did, because talk about this card might be the mascot for Spiritforged. A 2/2 that reads, when I conquer, play a gold gear token exhausted. And there's, again, you're going to get very familiar very fast with the gold gear tokens. And this is all about it in blue. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, it's seeing a lot of play in the early events in China. I've been covering a lot on my channel, and Kaiser's been doing very well in the first couple of weeks in China. But it's important to note that obviously the sets just come out. Also, people are going to have a shortage of cards. And I think another key detail is that one of the starter decks is a red-blue Rumble deck, and people have sort of taken the cards out of that and whacked it into Kaiser and had some early success. But this Plundering Porrow has been seeing a lot of play in those decks. It sort of is doing the opposite of a Pouty Porrow. A Pouty Porrow is disrupting your opponent's runes flow, whereas this is sort of helping to enable yours a little bit more. If you can conquer with this, you're going to be laughing. You're going to be feeling really, really good. And if you can do the unthinkable and conquer twice with this card, the ceiling is absolutely outrageous. But of course, if you're unsuccessful in conquering with this, you are just playing a 2 might card. So it's high risk, high reward.
Now there's 2 more cards to get through here. Joe, you want to talk about the Ruin Runner, a 6-costed 5 might card that reads, I can't be chosen by enemy spells and abilities. What made this stand out to you?
I love the flavor text. Catch me if you can, Alex. Well, this card's going to be so difficult to stop. We know that deflect is a really good keyword, right? That disrupts your opponent. But this card is like got deflect times 1,000,000 on it in a way, because it's not able to be targeted. That's going to be really difficult for a lot of decks to deal with. Imagine you're sat with Singularity in hand and your opponent plays a Ruin Runner. And what's more, imagine they start boosting its power up, either like, let's say with Master Yi, passive legend ability, or some sort of combat trick. Like, it looks to be quite early on a bit of a meta definer, like an anti-meta card, if you will. And it's definitely one to keep an eye on. It is expensive at 6 energy for just 5 might, but I think it makes up for it in its ability, particularly in a game where sideboards exist, right? It's going to be particularly disruptive to some of the better performing decks that we've seen historically. Decks like Kaiser are not going to want to run into a Ruin Runner.
No, not at all. And no, you're right. Like, you are paying a lot for this ability. It's definitely off of the stats wagon a little bit here, but it is an immensely powerful ability that can prevent it from being disrupted in so many different forms. And as a Teemo player, don't love the look of it. I got to be honest with you. It looks like it's going to be a little bit problematic. Now, there was one last card you wanted to discuss here. Which card was that? Yeah,
so Punch First, which is a card you can definitely combo with the card we just looked at.
This is kind of silly.
It might be my early pick. I think it is my early pick for best card of the new set. That could obviously change, and sometimes I'm known to have 6 or 7 best cards of the set, but if you had to just put me down to 1, I think Punch First would be my choice. Okay, 2 power cost, very heavy, but this kind of play is the kind of play which is going to win you a game. Okay, you're going to lose runes in the long run, but the momentum shift that this card can give you, give a unit plus 5 might this turn for 1 energy. 1 energy open, and suddenly you give something +5. It's an orange card. It's got a 2 orange power cost, but I expect all orange decks to be making use of this.
This is a very fascinating card because obviously the power cost being two runes is extensive. That is, you're basically taking a turn off from mana ramp, right?
Yep.
And but you just have to be showing 1 rune, literally 1 rune face up, and you can add 5 extra might to a unit. That is absolutely insane. And it's action speed. It's not reaction speed, but the key thing is it can be used in showdowns. If you're a little bit behind, slam this down. 5 might, that is a lot of might. I absolutely agree. It is one of those ones that's like very inexpensive to pull off, but it's detrimental to those future turns, right? Being that it is too power costed. Yeah, this is absolutely crazy. I don't know if I would say I don't know if I'm going to call this my best. I'm not sure what I think is my best. I have to think about that. We'll discuss that in a future episode for sure, because there's a couple absolute banger cards, even champion units that I think are like ridiculous, right? But outside of that, in terms of a common card, I think this is probably the best common card in the set for sure. Like, this is a card that everyone's going to have access to for the most part. It's going to be a sealed definer. Like, if you're playing sealed and you pull two of these, 3 of these, like, that's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, right? And I think that Body could have used a card like this, though. A little bit of extra oomph behind what its game plan generally is. So, yeah, love this card, absolutely. And there's going to be so many more cards to talk about in Spiritforged, because we're only just getting started. And as we discussed earlier, with Spiritforged being out in China here, we're getting like this trickling of all these different tournament results, all these different attempts at deck building, some fascinating things coming out of China as well. And we're going to keep breaking it down. So what you can do is you can make sure to hit that like button because it helps tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. Make sure you are subscribed for future episodes as well. And I hope you have a great holidays. Joe, how would you like to close this off?
Yeah, no, wishing everybody a very Merry Christmas if you do celebrate. Happy holidays to everyone. And yeah, thanks to Alex, and wishing everyone a good week of Riftbound. I think it's, for me, Alex, the time I start testing Spiritforged. I'm going to kick on with some Spiritforged gameplay this weekend and start getting some playtesting in and getting myself ready for Bologna. So that's something very much to look forward to, and wishing everyone a happy holidays. Yeah, for me, I'm hoping, even if it's the holidays, it's going to be really busy. I'm still hoping to get out to at least one LGS event, just do a little skirmish. Actually, we don't have any more skirmishes, but you know what I mean. I'm just going to get out there, play. I think I'm going to keep playing the Alex Garcia Teemo deck. I might try something else. I kind of want to build some set, because I think I have almost the entire meta list for set. I almost want to start playing with that a little bit more. But every week I want to get out and I'll play some Riftbound, and this opportunity to record with you is one of the things I look forward to the most, because this is the game I can't stop talking about. I can't stop thinking about, and I'm glad you guys are here with us. Hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful holiday season, and we'll see you on the next one.